Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something that feels like magic, but is pure high-speed engineering. It's that invisible dance that happens every single time you turn on your computer, taking you from a totally blank screen to your desktop in just a few seconds. So, let's dive in and see exactly how it all works. I mean, think about it. It's a button you press every day, probably without a second thought. But what exactly are you starting? Well, it's not just one thing. It's this incredibly fast, perfectly choreographed sequence of events. We're going to follow that chain reaction from the very first spark of electricity all the way to that familiar login screen. So, where does this journey even begin? Well, the very first stage is all about electricity. You can think of it like an alarm clock going off inside your computer, that first crucial signal that says, all right, time to wake up and get to work. The second you press that power button, you're actually completing a tiny circuit that sends a signal to the power supply unit, or PSU. Now, the PSU is basically the heart of your entire system. Its whole job is to take that powerful, wild, alternating current from your wall socket and tame it, converting it into the stable, low-voltage direct current that every single component inside your computer needs to live. But here's the really clever part. The PSU doesn't just blast power out to everything at once. No, it's smart. It waits for a split second until the voltages are perfectly stable and reliable. And only then does it send a very specific message to the motherboard called the power good signal. This is it. This is the official green light. The moment the PSU says, hey, the power is clean, it's stable, it's safe to start the real show. As soon as that power good signal is received, the computer's most basic, low-level consciousness kicks in. This is the firmware, a special program that lives on a chip right on the motherboard. And its first job is kind of like a manager doing a quick inventory check before opening up for the day, making sure all the essential employees are present and accounted for. Now, this firmware comes in two main flavors. For a long time, we had the classic, old-school, text-based BIOS, but pretty much all modern computers use something called UEFI. It's way faster, it's more secure, and you can even use your mouse in it. But no matter which one your computer has, the job is the same. Act as the bridge between all your physical hardware and the software that's about to run. So the firmware's very first action is to run something called the Power On Self-Test, or POST. You can literally think of this as a quick morning stretch for the computer. It checks the absolute essentials. Is the CPU, the brain, awake? Is the RAM ready to hold information? Does the video card work so we can see something? Is there a keyboard plugged in? You know, if something is seriously wrong, like if you have no RAM installed, this is when you might hear those famous beep codes. That's the POST literally talking to you because it can't use the screen yet. Okay, the hardware check is complete. Everything's in place. Now, the firmware has an incredibly important job to do. It needs to find the main software, the operating system. It's got the body up and running. Now it needs to go find the brain. So, how does it know where to even look for it? Well, it follows a simple preset checklist called the boot order. You can actually change this yourself. It'll usually start by looking at the fastest drive, your SSD. If it doesn't find an operating system there, no problem. It just moves to the next item on the list. Maybe a traditional hard drive, then a USB stick, and so on, until it finally finds a valid OS to get things started. And this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important transition in this entire process. It's the moment where the low-level firmware, which has been the boss up until now, gets ready to pass the baton, to hand over complete control to a much bigger program. So here's how that handoff goes down. First, the firmware finds the operating system's bootloader. It's a tiny, special-purpose program. Think of it as the doorman for the OS. Next, it loads that little program into the computer's active memory, the RAM. And finally, its job is over. The firmware completely steps aside and hands the keys to the kingdom over to the bootloader. From this point on, the software is in charge. And now we're in the final act. With a bootloader at the helm, the operating system itself starts to load, and the computer finally begins to become the fully functional machine we actually interact with every day. Now, that bootloader has one single vital mission: to wake up the most important piece of the operating system, which is called the kernel. The kernel is the true brain of the operation. It's the central core that manages everything: your memory, all the different programs, your hardware. It is the conductor of the entire orchestra. Once the kernel is running, it kicks off this final cascade of events. First, it starts loading all the drivers. These are like tiny translator programs that teach the kernel how to speak to your specific graphics card, your mouse, your Wi-Fi chip. Then it fires up all the essential background services for things like networking and security. And finally, the last piece of the puzzle. It launches the graphical user interface, your desktop, your icons, and that login screen. And there you have it. In just a handful of seconds, your computer has gone on this absolutely incredible journey. It started with a single power good electrical signal and then systematically built itself up layer by layer, from a basic hardware check all the way to a complex interactive operating system just waiting for your command. It is such an amazing feat of engineering that happens so fast, we just take it for granted. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other complex, invisible systems are working perfectly right now, just under the surface, to power the world all around us? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this one.